All right, welcome back into the Addison the 35th podcast. I'm your host for the Cubs episode today, Ryan Herrera, and with me is my good friend, former coworker, former pal, Luke Stuckmeyer. Luke, how's it going, man?
Not former pal. We're still pals.
All right, sure. Yeah, we're
Okay.
still pals. You're right.
All
You're
right.
right.
Thank you. Just making sure.
Now, how's it going, man?
I'm doing pretty good. Can we finally get this off season over with? I feel like it's just been an eternity. And you know how I've said it feels like the last 3 years were all one season.
Oh
So
yeah,
while this has been the best off season, it's still the off season. And I'm so ready for baseball to actually start and games to start.
yeah. Well, we're getting there. We're recording right now. It's Thursday, March 13th, so we're only 5 days away from the Cubs and Dodgers opening day, not league wide opening day, but first regular season baseball games of 2025. And I mean, you can feel the weather's been very nice the last week and a half or so. Like we're getting there. We're so close there, and I could feel it. But we are 5 days away from opening day for the Cubs. I mean, what are the vibes like? What are the vibes like for you, and how are you feeling about this team right now?
It's the best I've felt about this team probably since they traded away the core, right? Like
Yeah,
in that way, that's true. I still have this weird feeling about the Kyle Tucker thing. I'm trying not to look too far into the future, and really hope it's not a 1 year rental. Although that's obviously the most likely scenario to play out there. But I'm hoping just to have good baseball to watch this year, right? I think every Cubs fan out there, whether you're a diehard fan or a casual fan or a bandwagon fan, it doesn't matter. Everybody just wants to see exciting, important baseball. No more games that just don't mean anything all year long. Everybody's just looking forward to something. This is the most talented team they've had in a couple years, for sure.
yeah.
So, and I think it's the first time I've thought to myself, if they don't win the division, heads should roll. Heads should roll this time if they don't win the division.
No, I think that's a fair way to look at it. I mean, they went through this whole rebuild, just the tearing things down in like 2021 trade deadline, tore things down, got like traded their core for prospects, and we knew the prospects were years away. So we knew that there was going to be some time to wait until if this plan was going to work, it would be some time. Now we're going into the fourth season later, and I agree. Like the expectations are playoffs. The minimum is a playoff experience, a playoff appearance is what it feels like should be the expectation for this team. And yeah, I mean, I agree, and that if they don't make the playoffs this season, it's probably going to cost people jobs. It will cost Jed Hoyer. I get the feeling that he may be out of a job if he doesn't make the playoffs. Like I know he's limited by the budget stuff with the ownership and stuff like that. And I think I think he did a good job this offseason in those parameters. We don't know what the budget is exactly, of course,
Right.
but knowing that there is one, I think he actually did a good job of building this team and improving this team this offseason. But at the end of the day, it's like winning baseball games is what matters. Getting to the postseason. And you don't have to win the World Series, but break the postseason drought, get to the playoffs. That matters. And if they're not there in October, like I definitely could see the ownership making a change at the top of the baseball operations.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter where you want to really put the blame. And I agree he does have parameters that he has to follow, but at the same time, he's also still, even with those parameters, greatly outspending everybody in the division. So if you
Right.
can't finally take over a Brewers team that beat you somehow by 10 games last year, and I was just looking at the projections today with the Cubs projected by Bucco to win 91 plus, and the Brewers are way down in the 80s this time, and you're looking at it and you're saying, all right, there is just no way. I'll agree. I thought they were going to catch the Brewers last year. I thought this is the situation they were in last year, and somehow the Brewers were the Brewers and have been to the playoffs multiple years, like 3 out of the last 4 years they've won
Like
the
6
division.
of the last 7 or something like that in
Yeah,
the
they went
playoffs.
like division champs, second place, division champs, division champs. So I still think they've lost too much, and I think the Cubs have added too much for it not to finally catch up to them. Whether or not the Reds or somebody else surprises, I don't know, but
Yeah.
I would agree that this is a make or break season for some people in the organization.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at you mentioned Pacoda's projections. I just looked at fan graphs and the Cubs. It's not like they're projected to blow everyone away. Like they're at 84, about 84 wins projected
Yeah,
from fan graphs, and the Reds and Pirates are both basically 78 wins projected at the bottom
yeah,
of the division. So like,
it's more conservative than Pacoda.
yeah, it's more conservative and it's more like this division is still pretty middle. This is pretty mid,
Yeah,
honestly, is
yeah,
what we would have said in CHGO, but it's still pretty mid. And the Cubs have to go out and prove that, like, yes, they are the one. They are the big spenders in the division. They are the ones with the playoff aspirations because we know, like, the Cardinals aren't necessarily doing that right now. The Brewers lost. Willie Adames is gone in San Francisco, I believe.
hmm
The Pirates and the Reds are like they got some good young players. They got some talent there, but haven't put it all together the last couple of years. Obviously, especially the Pirates still being towards the back of the division the last couple of years. Like this is the Cubs are projected right now to win, and for good reason. They should be projected to win. And again, the expectation should be that this is going to be a playoff team in 2025.
Yeah, I mean, Devin Williams is gone in Milwaukee too. Like
Yeah, that too. Yeah.
they've lost a great reliever. They've lost another starter. You don't know what Woodruff is going to come back
Hmm.
like. Quintana, is he going to keep that magic going like that he had with the Mets last
Yeah.
year? I don't
Cortez.
know. But that said, it's not like they don't have some good young players that have high ceilings. Like I can't totally rule out the Brewers
No,
because
I think we've learned that you shouldn't do that
yeah,
the
like
last few years.
Churio, you don't know if Churio's going to be a superstar this year. You don't know if Mitchell's going to stay healthy. You don't know if Yelich is going to be healthy.
Hmm.
But if he is, and they are good, I mean, you could make an argument that those three guys in the outfield could hang with the Cubs three in the outfield very easily,
Yeah,
right?
and then you got William Contreras as well, like Reese
The
Hoskins.
best. Yeah.
I don't remember what his stats were this last year, but like I just vibes wise off the top of my head, like he's a good player
Yeah.
for them. So they still got a good team together. It may again we're like sitting here like the Brewers are going to take a step back, but like what's that taking a step back from 93 wins? Like how far back of a step do they take, right?
Yeah. They still have an
So
ace.
yeah, so it is on the Cubs to go prove it. It's on the Cubs to go out and prove that they are the team that's they're getting the projections again. Like we said, Pacoda, Fangraphs, whatever. If they're getting projections, now go out and prove why you're getting those projections. Why people are saying you're the favorite in the Central. Like they need to this year.
Yeah, I agree. And, the whole thing with Tucker, I was all about that trade when it happened because I've been begging this team to put a superstar on the field
Mhm.
since Chris Bryant and Rizzo and Baez were traded. And it was like they don't. The last couple of years, they've had a bunch of really good players to good players on the team with no superstar. Well, you've got a superstar now, but it cost you Cam Smith, who might actually make the Astros roster. And so let's see how it plays out. If you're just renting this guy and you're just renting some of these players, then it could be interesting next year, especially if you fail to win the division this year. So that's why I say people's job should be on the line. Because if you put this capital into this to make this season a season where you definitely go to the postseason and you don't get there, then there have to be answers.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Like you only get the benefit of the doubt for so long,
Yeah.
and at the end of the day, like we said, like winning baseball games matters, making the playoffs matters. You can't go 5 years in between. As a president of baseball operations, you can't go 5 years without making the playoffs, even though you get a couple of years in there for the rebuild or the
Yeah.
retool, whatever he wanted to call it. Like you just can't get that kind of grace for forever. There has to be you have to answer to whatever it is at some point. And so far, they haven't answered those questions of when they're going to make the playoffs. This has to be the year. But obviously, to get to the playoffs, you got to start. You got to start the regular season. You got to start game one of 162. Like we said, coming up here on Tuesday, March 18th in Tokyo. Is that a 5 a.m. start, by the way? Like
Yeah.
something
Yes.
like that?
Yes, it is. 5 a.m. start. Two of them.
So, so that'll be fun to get up for. But
Yeah.
the Cubs are in Tokyo. We've seen some fun things. I guess the Seiya Suzuki katana thing. That I like that a lot, but I guess that was still when they were here.
Did you see the samurai sword thing?
Yeah, the katana sword. Yeah, the taking
But
BP with that.
is okay. those are fake baseballs, right? I still don't know.
Oh,
Nobody's told me, but like, would a samurai sword really slice a major league baseball in half?
I will admit I'm not an expert on the samurai sword, but I mean they're really sharp. They are.
I know they're sharp, but that's like, I don't know. I think even if you had a chainsaw, I don't know that it would go through a baseball coming straight at it.
I choose to believe it. I'm gonna choose
I,
to believe
I
it.
I'm assuming that my guy Scott Shagnon shot that video, and so I'm going to text him and say, "Were those real
Yeah,
baseballs? Were you throwing like foam balls?" I mean, it sliced the
yeah.
thing in half.
There you go. You get your reporter's cap back on. It's been a few years, but
It,
get
it
that back
has.
on. So
It was
there's
still
that. I
funny.
mean, yeah, the Justin Turner, the picture of him wearing a kimono was
Yeah,
great. Shota is obviously like a superstar right now in Japan. You're seeing videos of
yeah,
him. So they're there. They're having fun. They're starting to get to guys that have never been to Tokyo, have never been in Japan. Like they're going to learn about the culture there. I'm sure Seiya and Shota will help them, but I do have obviously the travel roster, the travel party for the Cubs players that did go. They got the three catchers: Miguel Amaya, Carson Kelly, Reese McGuire, who's not on the 40 man. I believe he's going to be just like an emergency catcher. Makes
uh-huh,
sense why they brought him there. Your infielders: Michael Bush, John Birdie, Dansby Swanson, Matt Shaw, Gage Workman, Justin Turner, Vidal Brujan. And then your outfielders: Kyle Tucker, Pete Armstrong, Ian Happ, and Seiya Suzuki. And then on the pitching side, you got Imanaga starting game one, Justin Steele game two. Tyone, I believe, is starting the Sunday exhibition game there.
right,
Matthew Boyd, I don't know if it's been said if he's going to start one of those games or pitch that game with Tyone or be saved for the actual regular season games.
right,
You got Ben Brown, Colin Ray, Jordan Wicks, Brad Keller, who's also not on the 40 man, Daniel Palencia, Eli Morgan, Tyson Miller, Caleb Thielbar, Julian Merriweather, Nate Pearson, Porter Hodge, Ryan Presley, and Ryan Brazier. So mostly guys that we expected to be there,
yeah,
whether that is as 26 man opening day roster guys or traveling party guys, taxi squad. I know there's a couple guys if you're watching us on the YouTube, you see the rundown on the left side. There are a couple of guys I do want to talk about a little bit more in depth, but I'm curious from your perspective, Luke, are there any surprises of guys that were left off the roster? Any guys that you expected to be there that when you saw the travel roster, you're like, huh, interesting.
I mean, Nico, we knew wasn't going to go, and I
Yeah.
think you probably knew that the minute he had surgery, and then they told us, like right at the beginning of camp, that it was pretty unlikely. Um, I thought they were going to. I really did think Shaw was not going to go.
Oh, wow.
I
Okay.
thought Shaw wasn't going to go because they thought to themselves, it's an oblique. Do we really want to send him on a 14-hour flight? Can we just leave him back, let him continue his thing? And I thought Alcantara was going to go in case something happened to PCA in the outfield. Knock on
Yeah,
wood.
that's
That's
fair.
what I thought Alcantara was going to go and that Shaw likely wouldn't go. But instead, it's Shaw and Brujan going.
Yeah.
And Brujan has great versatility. Workman gives you great versatility. So otherwise, no, I'm not shocked that other guy. I mean, the other ones are just because of injury in my eyes. Like
Mhm.
Assad would be there, but Assad's not there because he's hurt.
Yeah.
Um, so no, I don't think there's any big surprises. Do you?
Well, I was gonna say the one like I'm with you on like I never Shaw was never ruled out obviously, but I could have
Right.
like prior to obviously these last couple days, like you could have definitely made a case that Kevin Alcantara was gonna go. And they have four outfielders. I would assume like a John Birdie or some of these other guys the utility guys they brought along can be used in emergency situations in the outfield there. Say Suzuki obviously is their fourth outfielder. He'll be. I wonder if he's gonna they're gonna let him play right field one of those games or not. I guess
Oh,
we'll
that'd
see.
be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, is it like do a service for the player, right? You do a service for a guy. He's in Japan. He's in Tokyo. Like, do you kind of you give him that? And the one thing I'll say with that is like, I get the whole like Kyle Tucker's a better right fielder than say like I get all that stuff, but it's also like in the long run, like game two out of 162 should not like it shouldn't matter at the end of the season. And I get
No.
it, like I get it, like if you're to say, you know, you ended up one game out of the postseason and Seiya does something in this game that directly cost the team the game, I guess
Sure.
you can make the argument at the end of the season that like, oh, he shouldn't have played right field. But right now, right here, like it could be good for even just coach player relationship wise to give him one and let him go play right field in front of his his country, in front of his fans, Japanese fans. I think that's fair if Craig Counsell decides to do it, right?
I hadn't really thought about that, but you're probably right. That is a decision he's got to make. How do you treat these like a playoff game? Because there are games in the middle of the summer that you will not, right?
For
Where you're
sure.
like, I've got to get this guy rest. I've got to get this guy rest. It's they've just traveled all the way over to Japan, 14 hours difference. It would mean a lot to Seiya to get to play because we heard at nauseum that people suggesting that he didn't want a DH necessarily. So maybe you could give him one game. And you are right about this. If the Cubs miss the playoffs by one game this season, there will be plenty of opportunities to go back and say, this caused it, this caused it,
Yeah,
this caused
exactly.
it. You won't even have to think back to Japan because if they miss it by one game, you'll be able to look at 20 other
Yeah.
instances in the season where something ridiculous happened. They blew a 6-0 lead, or somebody was left in too long, or whatever.
Yeah. Well,
There'll be plenty of chances for that to happen.
look at 2023, right?
Yeah.
Like Seiya got so much hate for the drop ball in Atlanta, and really it was only because it was like the third to last game of fifth to last game of the season
Yeah.
or whatever that was, right? Like had that happened in April, like probably not really thinking about that much. And so like now, and I'm just using that as like an example of I did exactly what you're saying. Exactly what you're saying. Like if they miss it by one game, there are going to be tons of different examples of like this may have directly led to a loss if this didn't happen. The Cubs would be in the playoffs, whatever. So I like personally, if that were to happen, is what I'm saying. I would
Yeah.
not be looking back at this game as starting Seiya Suzuki in right field cost the Cubs a playoff appearance. I think that would be insane.
And it's
But
against the Dodgers, by the way, who may not lose a game this year.
yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, so I'm like, if Craig Counsell decides to put Seiya Suzuki in right field for one of those games, like I honestly, I think that's a good move for him to make, and just taking care of the player, like being on the player side in a way. I think that's something that we can. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens, is what I'm saying. But I got off track on that as well. The one name that I was a little surprised to see not go was Keegan Thompson.
Yeah. I
Obviously,
I wonder what his future is, right? Like
yeah.
there's the Bob Nightingale report this morning that they're at least entering
Mm-hmm.
negotiations with Lance Lynn.
Lance Lynn.
And I don't know how he really fits on the roster necessarily, like what spot he's taking, but Keegan hasn't been great this spring.
Yeah, and there's like Keegan Thompson. If we're talking about 2022, or I guess if we're talking about going into 2023 season, if this
Yeah.
happens 2 years ago, Keegan's obviously on that flight to Japan
Yeah.
because coming off what he did in 2022, and I think his spring 2023 was really good too, if I'm not mistaken.
Ryan,
Um,
we were sitting back then at the time thinking, man, I'm not sure which one is Steele the starter, is Keegan the super reliever, which guys,
yeah,
and to see the difference between the two now going into 2025, it's really actually kind of shocking.
yeah, it seems like a long time ago that we were having those
It
conversations.
does.
But yeah, so I'm like Keegan, I'm with you. Like, what does this mean for his future? Like, he's on the 40-man roster, right? And like the guy I look at that they brought along that isn't on the 40-man roster, as I pointed out, is Brad Keller, and they're really high on him from what we've gotten from Craig Counsell and those guys out of or from reports from Arizona. Like,
He's making the team.
yeah, they're high on him. He's most likely going to make the team. He was like
Oh, yeah.
sitting 96 or
Yeah.
something in his
He's making
first
the team.
spring. Yeah, I would be like, it would be a surprise if he didn't make the team at this point. And so, like, obviously, he needs a 40-man spot. There needs to be a move made to open up a 40-man spot for him. Is that Keegan Thompson at this point? Right. I think that's the big question now. Is Keegan Thompson the guy that or the odd man out now in this bullpen and this pitching staff?
Yeah, and if you added Lance Lynn, you'd need a spot for him too.
There you go.
So
So
like the room is getting crowded. I saw a quote from Jameson Tyone just talking about the depth on this team. And he was just like, he looked around, he was shocked, and he said something to the effect of, nah, we've never had it like this before. And he was referring to how even the non-roster invitees like Keller have really good stuff. And so there's no question they've added pitching depth. I hope they've added enough at the top for it to be successful enough this season, but I think they've done a pretty good job of adding depth. And I guess Lance Lynn would only add to that. I'm just not sure exactly how he's going to be used, because at the back end, you're looking at Assad when he's healthy. You're looking at Colin Ray, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're looking at
Wicks, Brown.
What's going to go on with Wicks? When is Horton going to be ready? What is Ben Brown's role going to be? All of those guys. What's Keller's role going to be? I saw Patrick Mooney saying basically he thinks Keller, or he hinted at the possibility that Keller just might be a high leverage 3-out guy with that stuff and not a starter. So we'll see. I would think if I would assume that if they actually did sign Lance Lynn in the next couple days, that they'd be looking at him in that swing role that Assad is injured in right now.
Yeah, and that makes me wonder, is Assad the plan? Might he be moved to the 60-day, right? That would obviously open up a 40-man spot.
Yeah,
is that a thing? So, that presents questions, of course. But I think back to the Keegan Thompson thing, it feels like his time is starting to run out here in the organization.
Yeah.
I feel like they would have brought him to Japan otherwise. Them not bringing him to Japan as a 40-man roster pitcher, it tells you something. And the fact that Brad Keller is there, I don't feel like they would bring back Keller if they weren't going to use him. So it feels like the writing is on the wall. Obviously, I don't think they have to have those rosters. They don't have to have them there or official or something until the 17th, maybe.
Yeah, it's the 16th. It's the 16th or the 17th or something like that. They take the 31 guys to Japan,
26 men,
and then but they don't. That doesn't really impact what happens for the rest of the regular season. So yeah, it's like the 16th or 17th. I think you're right.
Yeah, so they have to have that. I think that's we still have a few days until that move would need to be made, I guess. And then obviously with Shaw, we'll get Shaw's our next topic here, so we'll move into that. Matt Shaw, as you said earlier, it's kind of in a way a surprise that starting with the oblique injury at the beginning of spring training, being slowed. I think he made his Cactus League debut on the second or third, so a week and a half ago, a little under 2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
and so he hasn't been, and he was playing every other game, I think, at least to start. So it's not like he's got a whole first 4 weeks or so of spring under his belt, getting him ready for this. It was a pretty quick ramp up. I think at the beginning, I think at the time when the injury was revealed, it was it's mild, it's not super concerning, but he's going to be shut down for a little bit here. And so maybe that fits in with they didn't rush him, but he wasn't feeling too bad at the time and was able to get right and get ready in time for this. But he's there. I think the same thing. I don't think they would take him if they didn't plan to use him in that series. How are we feeling? How are we feeling about Matt Shaw and his debut incoming?
Well, I'm curious if he will start both games at third base. One thing that I had not thought about that I heard John Morosi talking about on the radio on 670 The Score today was that Shaw has played at the Tokyo Dome. He played there with Team USA. So he actually has a leg up on some of the guys about what the stadium will feel like and look like. Yeah. He's one of the few guys that's played there. So
yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah,
I'll be interested to see what his season is like. Some of the projections are pretty high. In fact, some of the projections for both Workman and Shaw are pretty high. We did a thing on our podcast I started looking at third base and 25 home runs. There's only been 7 players in modern era Cubs baseball that have actually hit 25 home runs at third base for the Cubs. Now that would be combined. They'd have to combine to do it, Shaw and Workman, based on the projections. But I was surprised that it was even in that range. Like I don't
Yeah.
know what to expect out of him. Morosi's really high on him. Morosi's like he can hit, and he watched him over in Japan with Team USA, and he said at the beginning of that tournament to the end of the tournament, you could see a clear progress in his
Yeah.
defensive third base.
I think he won like there was some award given out for like third baseman in the Premier 12, and they gave it to Matt Shaw at third base. I don't remember exactly what it was, but
Yeah,
it was something that happened that he got awarded for. I mean, yeah, I think you said Morosi's high on him. It seems like there's a lot of people high on him. Like I have seen some concerns about the leg kick, and I get it. Like the
sure.
just a very dramatic leg kick. But you listen to I remember Dustin Kelly talking about it at Cubs convention and saying like it's not an issue until it's an issue, right? Like you don't know that it's going to be an issue until you see it at the major league level. And if it becomes an issue, you address it. And if it doesn't become an issue, then you got nothing to address, right? I think that's a good way to look at it, and that's also just like the regular, the regular progression of a kid going into the major leagues is like some of the things he did in the minor leagues that worked might not work in the big leagues, and you got
Right.
to adjust a little bit.
I think it's going to be fascinating over the next 5-6 years to see the two career paths of Cam Smith and Matt Shaw. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, you take top 100 prospects and you really have no idea which ones are going to hit. And you look at it, and Shaw's the top prospect. Smith has had one nice spring training, but so nice that the Astros are thinking about actually, with just a few games at AA, being like, go ahead, you got a roster spot. Which guy will have the better major league career 5 or 6 years from now?
Yeah. That's good. I'm with you. That'll be interesting to watch. And like Cam Smith has had himself a really good spring. And it's funny because like Just Baseball put out the top 100 prospect rankings over the last couple days, and I think Shaw was at 12 and Cam Smith was at like 14 or 15, something like right behind
Yeah.
him. Maybe it's even 13. It might have even been 13. So right behind him. It's like wow, I think we believe in what Matt Shaw does. We believe in Matt
Yeah.
Shaw as a major leaguer for the Cubs, but it's also like I understand people's angst seeing Cam Smith shoot up prospect rankings boards, especially as you mentioned earlier with Kyle Tucker and only being under 1 year of contract,
Yeah.
and you don't know what the future holds for him. Like I think about like you said, the next 5 or 6 years. Think 6 years from now, or after the next 5 seasons, you've gotten the Cubs don't re-sign Kyle Tucker, so they had him for the 1 year, regardless of what happens now. And Cam Smith is an all-star 5 years from now. Like I don't know how Cubs fans are going to feel about that.
Well, we'll just have to wait and see what happens. There's no guarantee with any of them, but I will say that I am excited about Matt Shaw, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm excited to see what Matt Shaw gets. I'm actually one of the few people I think that's okay with that they didn't get Bregman. I think Bregman was $40 million a season for Bregman. I'm not sure I would have paid it. And it's not my money. So it's easy for me to say, spend the money, go ahead and do it. But if you set a budget and he was there and there was an opportunity, if you wanted to spend a little bit more, that maybe you could have gotten him. I'm okay with trying to find out what Shaw is. I know it's a way bigger roll of the dice, but even if they had Bregman, I'm not sure this is a World Series team.
Yeah.
You got to get through the Dodgers. So I think it's time to find out what Matt Shaw's got. And everybody that you hear talk about him, the former Cubs, the veterans, the Hall of Famers, everybody says this kid can play.
Yeah.
He can hit. He can do it defensively, and he's got the mindset that you want for a young player going into it.
Listening
That's
to
all
him
you can ask
talk.
for. Now you roll him out there and see what happens.
Yeah, listening to him talk, even like I remember when he first got drafted and they bring the first overall pick out to Wrigley, and I think actually it was like the first, and I think him and it was a Jackson Wiggins that year, maybe. I know he was at Wrigley like right after he got drafted, and just hearing him talk then, he's like 22 years old, just out of college. Like I don't think he had made his like debut, his pro debut yet. But the way he talked and like hearing him talk at like Cubs conventions and stuff like that, since like this guy's got the mindset of a guy that's it felt like he's already been in the big leagues, the way he talked about the game, the way he thinks about the game, and obviously he has to go out and do it. Like that's the main thing is go out, prove why you're the Cubs' top prospect in the system, why you're so hyped up as a prospect overall. Like, you got to go out and do it and find the success yourself. No one can do it for you. But like you said, like, you believe in Matt Shaw. Like, I think we're all believers in Matt Shaw at this point.
I got a question for you. So Tucker is the MVP candidate on the team, right?
Mm-hmm.
Shaw would be your candidate if you're going to say rookie of the year. And then you have Shota and Steele that might be Cy Young candidates. If you had to lay money on one of those four to get it done, or if you had to say, I'm most confident in one of these four to get it done, which one of the four?
That's so tough. That's so tough
Yeah.
because, like, in a vacuum, like, it's the pool of prospects is less than the pool of players that could win the MVP, and it's less than the
Sure.
pool of pitchers who could win the Cy Young. But it's also like, you just don't know what these guys are going to do once they hit the big leagues, right? Like, we were really high on Pete Crow Armstrong. It took him a while to get major league hitting figured out, and we're not even 100% sure that he's completely figured it out yet, right? Like, there's definitely chance that struggles still come. That said, I do think I would say Matt Shaw winning Rookie of the Year would be like where I'm most confident among those four. Like actually, my our one of your former coworkers, my fellow Addison the 35th podcast co-host, he actually said his bold prediction was that Kyle Tucker wins the MVP this year.
See, I would still put Tucker as number one for me too, but I think Shaw would be second in line. Tucker has a bigger pool of players to go against,
but he's so good.
But it's that he's got to go against Shohei and Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman and Juan Soto, right? Like, he's got some pretty elite players that he's going to have to leapfrog. Whereas Shaw, you can't rank any of those guys really because you haven't seen them. So I think it's one or the other.
Yeah, I wonder if they have any of the NL Rookie of the Year odds anywhere. Let's see. I would assume Matt Shaw is near the top with that. I don't know that he'd be number one.
Don't look, because if Cam Smith's odds are better, I'm going to pass out right here on the podcast.
They're not better. Matt Shaw right now is top 3, it looks like, in most of those services behind Dylan
and Tucker's
Cruz.
Probably not top 3 for MVP.
Yeah. So, but I'd probably put Matt Shaw at number 1 there. I believe in him as a rookie. I believe in him as a prospect. I believe in him as where he's going to, his major league career is going to go. I mean, obviously the hope for Cubs fans, for the Cubs and Matt Shaw himself, is that he hits the ground running and can win that Rookie of the Year. I mean, there's obviously the player performance incentive stuff, like the extra draft pick that the Cubs would get if he wins Rookie of the Year. Like, there's other incentives there too, but just as a player, like, they're all hoping, everyone's hoping that Matt Shaw is the real deal to start out.
But if you want incentives, talk about the power of money. Kyle Tucker in a contract here.
Yeah, exactly.
That's incentive.
Yeah, so obviously, besides Shaw, one of the guys that's going out there, that there was some talk and some speculation, or maybe a week or so ago, or even before that, what are they going to do with Gage Workman? How does he fit on the roster? Will he be on the roster on opening day and domestic opening day and all that stuff? It feels like Gage Workman has earned his spot with the Cubs right now. I don't have his spring training numbers off the top of my head. I believe it's like an 1,100 something OPS in spring training. Like, when we talk about guys who are more of the marginal pieces, they don't have a guaranteed spot on the roster, and a guy like Kyle Tucker can go 0 for 20 to start spring because maybe he's working on something or looking for specific pitches or whatever it is. Like, Gage Workman is not that guy. He had to come in. He's one of those guys that had to come in and earn a spot, or show the coaching staff, show the front office, like, hey, like, you brought me here for a reason, and I'm proving you right. I'm proving you that I can do this right now. And obviously he's not facing the best of the best at all times. There's, it's spring training, it's Cactus League, like, a lot of rookies or prospects and different guys are getting in games like that. But he's taking the opportunity that is in front of him, and he's ran with it. And now, he's in Japan. I guess we don't know yet if he's going to be on the active roster, but he might be for those 2 games. I mean, what are your thoughts on Gage Workman right now? Like, do you think he sticks around long term? Not maybe long term relative to, like, is he going to be on this team when they're stateside playing full regular season slate?
I mean, if you have to pick one surprise of the Cubs spring, it's Gage Workman.
Yeah, I
Has
think
to
so
be.
too.
Has to be. I mean, Keller might be on the list, but it's Gage Workman. He sure looks the part. And I know they'd have to
Big
return
dude.
him if he didn't make the team and all that stuff. But he's another reason. And I know I've been around long enough that I know I shouldn't put faith into spring training numbers. But it's another reason why I'm okay with the Bregman thing. It was $40 million, and now you've got Shaw and Workman. They both look pretty good. They
Yeah.
both look like they could be you've been waiting for a third baseman since Chris Bryant left. And all of a sudden, you have a couple of guys that you're pretty excited about over at third base. And Workman's got this power. And what I didn't know about
Big
him
dude,
was
left-handed swing too. Like,
left-handed swing. And what I didn't know about him was I didn't know that he was a plus defender. He can sling the leather at third base. And so that changes things up a little bit too. Like I could see him coming into games and actually being a defensive replacement at times.
yeah.
He's a good defender at third,
Yeah.
and he gives you power. So if you bring a guy in and the other guy, whatever, let's say Shaw's 0 for 3 in the game and hasn't had a good week, you could pinch hit Workman and leave him in at third base and not feel like you were losing anything because the defense alone would be good.
Yeah. Do you also know his middle name apparently is Tater?
It is Tater, yeah. It
So
was
Gage,
his grandfather's name was Tater,
or
and
nickname, I
so
think
his
it
dad
was.
said it's a baseball name. We're sticking with Tater.
Can you think of a more baseball name than Gage Tater Workman? Nah.
It's
Like that's
yeah, it's pretty
it's hard
good.
to beat. It's hard to beat that. No, but yeah, I'm with you. He's surprised everyone. I think, especially with the glove, he's looked a lot better there than maybe we expected going into
Yeah,
spring. And there was always questions about. I mean, he's a Rule 5 pick, right? Like Rule
yeah,
5 picks, there's always going to be questions about it. You got some guys like Johan Santana and Josh Hamilton who broke through as Rule 5 picks, but those are more of the exception to the rule than the rule, right? Like most of the time,
yeah.
these Rule 5 picks are lottery tickets, and he hasn't played above Double A, I don't think, right?
Right.
If I'm not
I think
mistaken,
that's
like
right.
never. Yeah, he's a little bit on the older side prospect wise. Hadn't played above Double A. I think the strikeout rates in the minor leagues were high, but the Cubs saw something in him when they made him the Rule 5 pick, and he's come out and his spring has been a pleasant surprise to people watching and wondering what the Cubs are going to do with the infielders, with the bench, with third base, because he looks like a guy who has at least earned a shot to see. I mean, Matt Shaw's going to be the starting third baseman on opening day and probably in the regular season. And like, I think we can agree with like that's what should happen. See what you got in Matt Shaw. But like, if that doesn't work out, like he's struggling, and maybe you need to option into the minor leagues. Maybe he needs some. He can't play every day. Whatever that might be. Like, it feels like Gage Workman has at least earned the like. Okay, if you're going to move away from Matt Shaw for right now, like you should give me a shot.
Yeah, I mean, is he a roll of the dice in that sense? Yes. He's a Rule 5 guy, and you don't know if the spring training stuff is really what you think it is, but they saw something before. I would just say this. The Cubs have talked about making these incremental improvements and upgrades around their roster and on their team, right? Some of them are small little improvements. Is Colin Ray or somebody going to be better than Hendricks was last year? Or is Matthew Boyd going to be better than Hendricks was last year? Whatever they get at third base, it's going to be better than what they had last year. That you can't even question that. I'm confident that no matter what you get out of these two guys, I still think it'll be better than what you had at third base last year, just based solely on defense.
We gave them Fs.
We gave them Fs on our report
the third
card.
base. The third
like,
base.
I don't think there's any question they've made an upgrade there. And I don't think there's any question if you're looking at this as just a roster thing. I would rather roll the dice this year with Gage Workman being my utility guy over at third than I would with bringing Wisdom back, no offense, Master Boney, no offense, or whoever else you might have had over there, Madrigal, no offense. I like the upside of this more than I like any of those three options, just for even incremental improvement.
Yeah, I mean, in again, it's a surprise because I think when they picked him in the Rule 5 draft, I want to say he was like in the bottom, like near the bottom of the Tigers' top 30 prospects. Like he's not like this highly thought of prospect. He's not this. I mean, when the name was said, I can say with 100% certainty, I had never heard of that name. I had no idea who this guy was when the Cubs picked him. And I'm sure most
you
people
didn't know
would say
about
that.
Tater? You hadn't heard about Tater?
I hadn't heard about Tater.
Oh, I knew.
I'm sure most
Tater.
people can say the same. But he has surprised on the field, and it feels like with the Rule 5 draft pick stuff, like you're worried about like, are we gonna make this pick and then we're just gonna have to give him back because whatever because of the rules, like if he's not on the active roster the whole season, like the team has to give him back. Like you're obviously that's a concern when you do make that pick. It feels like Gage Workman to this point has shown the Cubs like, hey, I'm worth keeping around, even if it's just a bench role, even if it's just a utility infielder role or whatever. Like I've earned that spot. It seems like that's what's happened with Gage Workman so far.
Now, Ryan, at the beginning of this podcast, you said we were still pals. Okay?
We are still pals.
We are still pals. So that means if Gage Workman is not even on this roster in 5 months and we're all laughing about what a joke it was, that, if everything goes south, I want you to go back and delete this podcast from the internet.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. No,
That's all
I
I'm
got
asking, because
I got you.
that is distinct possibility too, that the spring training numbers were nothing and everybody's getting excited over something they shouldn't get super excited about. That said, he's earned the spot.
Hey, you know what? We'll leave it at we're not even excited about it. We're just saying it's
We're just saying he's earned the spot.
We're just saying
he's earned the spot.
Nothing too
Forget
exciting.
the stuff where I was talking about the 25 homers and all that.
Yeah, I forgot about that. No, it's we've been wrong before. That's what happens when you're talking baseball. Like
I have. I wanted to trade Ian Happ for Yohan Moncada a couple years ago.
You wanted to trade Ian Happ and Patrick Wisdom for Yohan Moncada.
That's right. Rick Hahn wouldn't take my call.
No, but yeah, I think we're on the same page. Like Gage Workman has earned that spot. It remains to be seen if the Cubs keep him on the roster the whole season and keep him in the organization beyond that. Like that's something we'll have to see and monitor throughout the year. But to this point, it looks like he's earned that spot. Them taking him to Japan shows us that he's pretty much earned that spot, at least for now. And we'll see where it comes. But yeah, I'm excited. We have, even if it's waking up at 5 a.m. for a baseball game, like we got regular season baseball here in like 4.5 days. Like we're here.
Oh, thank you. Finally. It's been so long.
All right. Well, that'll do it for the Addison the 35th podcast. Thanks to Luke Stuckmeyer for hopping on with me. Whoa.
First of all, I want to wish you and Herb luck on this, because I'm excited for you guys. We miss you guys. You're going to do great, and all the other opportunities you're going to have. So I'll be watching. Anytime you want me on, if you ever want me on again, let me know. But I'm happy for both you guys getting this shot here to do what you do well.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna take you up on that, because I'm gonna need more guests throughout the season. So I'll take you up on that. But yeah, it's Luke Stuckmeyer. You find him on social media. It's at Luke Stuckmeyer, right?
Yeah, that's it.
There you go. And CHGO Sports, CHGO Cubs. You find him there. Still pals. Yeah. I don't know why I said former pals. We're still pals.
Former pals. I don't know. I thought, wow, this is just like that. Former pals.
No, we're back to being
teammates for life is what I say. Teammates for life.
There you go. All right. Thanks to Luke Stuckmeyer for joining us. This has been the Addison to 35th podcast. We will catch you next time. See you later.